Welcome to another episode of the S.E.M podcast. Jack Bryce and Zach Hewlett are back again. And today we have a special podcast. We've got two missionaries with us, Anna Burton and Chris Rogers, and it's now Anna and Chris Rogers. So welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here. Thanks, guys.
Where are you calling from?
We're here in Lehi, Utah.
All right.
Lehi. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Old Lehi or the newer Lehi?
Yeah, it's right
Newer
down the
town.
road from the Lehi Cemetery. So it's
And the new
kind of
Sky Ridge High School, so it's kind of in the newer, older
yeah, Dry
medium area.
Creek. Yeah.
east side.
Very
We
cool.
love it. Yeah.
Good.
All right. Well, we'll start off with Chris. Why don't you start us off with leading up to the mission, deciding to go on a mission, finding out you're going to Scotland.
Yeah. I had a good friend who was going on his mission. He was going to another UK mission. I think he was called the Leeds. And I went to his farewell talk, and I was just overcome. I sat in the back. I think I looked up at him to hear him speak maybe 3 or 4 times during the 10 minutes he was speaking, and the rest of the time I had my head down. I was just sobbing, and I knew from that moment I was gonna have to go on a mission, and that's what the Spirit was telling me. And it was one of those, you can't deny it type of an experience. And I think the Lord had to hit me over the head like that for me to make sure I was going to be committed to go. So I put in my papers and started that process, and I was convinced I was going to be called to Germany because I had done 2 or 3 years of German language training in high school. That was the language I was learning, and was pretty surprised when I got the call to Scotland. I don't know that there was disappointment. I did think that I wasn't going abroad to a foreign-speaking mission, which was my mistake. And I'd known 2 friends who were currently serving in Scotland when I got my call. And so one of them got home right before I was leaving, and he came over, kind of gave me the download, like, here's what to expect, so there's not an immediate culture shock. And growing up in the UK, we hear the accents from all over: Scottish, Irish, Welsh, northern, southern accents in England. And I didn't think it was going to be such a newness to going and living among the Scots. And without fast forwarding too much, I spent 6 months of my mission up on the islands in Orkney, and
Nice.
they didn't speak Scottish up there. They spoke Viking. It was
Very true.
very different. So that's how I got my call.
And what was the time frame?
Yeah, so I went 1999, and I turned 19 in February, and I went into the MTC on March 18th, 1999. And I went into the MTC in England in why am I blanking on it? Not the London MTC,
Preston.
but the Preston MTC. Thank you. And I think we were one of the very first. I mean, I think that year, maybe in January, they'd had a couple of groups, but we had a group of no more than 20 missionaries made up of elders and sisters, maybe 4 sisters, 16 elders from all over Europe. And I had an MTC companion from Italy. I forget his name. He didn't speak any English. One of the sisters from Italy was translating for him everything that needed to be understood. And I remember he may have misunderstood the length of his stay in the MTC because he didn't bring any change of clothes. And every night he was washing his undergarments in the sink in the bathroom
Jeez Louise.
and needed to fast dry them because he had to wear them the next day. And I mean, it gave me an appreciation that maybe he just didn't have a lot, and he was giving up almost everything to go on a mission. So that was an early appreciation that we were all coming from very different circumstances and backgrounds and life experiences up to that point. And we had President Sister White with the MTC president. And it was just a great experience, those 3 weeks. I remember in the MTC thinking, I could do this. I've got this now. And then I realized that was not my mission. I'm going to Scotland. I got to figure out something very different, you know.
Yeah.
You'd hear people say the Provo MTC was like too long and that they liked it, but they were ready to go. And the Preston MTC was just like one big party. We were having so much fun. I was like, I could stay here the whole 18 months. And
You had a very different group than I did.
did you not feel that way? Oh,
It wasn't a party for
I was
us.
sad to leave.
Well, with that, Anna, tell us about getting your call, deciding to go on a mission and finding out you're going to Scotland.
So I was young when I wanted to go on a mission. My older sister, she's like 8 years older than me, had served a mission in New York City, sign language speaking. So I had decided at a young age I wanted to go, but you know, way back then we were a lot older. I think I was 22 when I went on my mission, and my dad served in Scotland. So when I had this idea that you got to kind of make a request. I don't even know where I'd heard that. So I'm talking to my bishop, and it's funny because my dad did not want me to go on a mission. He was like, "Really? I thought that was for ugly fat girls."
Oh, jeez.
We can edit that part out later.
No, we won't.
He did say that because in his day when he went, and I was like, I really want to go on a mission. So with my bishop, I remember right before I left the bishop's office, I said, "Don't I get to make a request?" And he was like, not really, not
not a
usually,
thing.
but why? And I was like, because I really want to go to Scotland on my mission. And I remember I got a phone call from the stake president that night asking me questions about that. Like, why do you want to go there? And I had a few different reasons why, actually. But like I had done Scottish country dancing when I was young, and the first musical I ever did was Brigadoon. And again, I heard my dad's stories of Scotland growing up. And so I was like, this would just be the coolest thing ever. So when I got my mission call, it's fun because I have it on video, but like my whole family was just screaming, like, you know, they knew this was what I wanted. But
That's awesome.
It's fun to be able to say that, like, I asked to go where I went. So I actually told my kids, we have one mature missionary and one out right now. And I told them both, if you have somewhere you would like to go, you should mention it to the bishop.
Yeah.
They both said South America Spanish speaking, and that's what happened. So
There you go.
I'm a believer in, like,
It's so cool.
if you want to go somewhere.
Who dares wins, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what
I'm
was the
sad
timing?
she didn't tell her bishop or stake president that she knew she was going to meet her husband in Scotland.
Yeah.
That would have been number one reason to request, but we didn't
Maybe
know that
that's
was
why
gonna
I
happen.
felt so prompted, honey.
There you go.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And what was the timing of your call, Anna?
So yeah, I left March of 99. Would that make sense?
2000.
Or 2000, yeah. And then came back in August of 2001.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Why did I
So take us now to after your missions. We want to know, you met on the mission, I guess you knew each other. But how'd you get together?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about 15 months out, so I had been in Irvine and Greenock and was in Dalkeith as the zone leader companion. And then I got a call. My trainer was the assistant in the mission home when they said, "Hey, we're calling you to go to the Orkney Islands. And we need you to come to the mission home and get a new car and drive it to the Orkneys." So on transfer day, you know, I took I think I took a train to Edinburgh, and then they picked me up from the station, got me in this little Vauxhall Corsa, and I was given the assignment to go stay in the zone leader's apartment in Inverness that night, and then the rest of the journey I made the next morning. The missionary I was replacing in Orkney, who shall remain unnamed, had crashed the vehicle into a farmer's field, and they were still kind of rebuilding this rock wall as service to the
Oh
the
my
farmer.
gosh.
And so they had been without a vehicle till I could take a replacement. So we, I don't know that any other missionary had been entrusted to do this, but for a whole day of my mission, I was without a companion in this vehicle as I was driving south to north, all the way north. You know, you get a boat and you take 2 hours to get to the islands. So
You didn't take the scenic route, Chris? Come on. You have a car,
Well,
you have all the things you need your whole life. You didn't take the route, through Glasgow and the Loch Lomond, Fort William.
There was a couple times I thought to myself, this journey could be very different if I was that daring or that rebellious. It was before sat-nav.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I thought, heaven has the perfect tracking system, so there's nothing I could do that's going unnoticed as a missionary.
Fair thought there. Well done.
Yeah, so I spent 6 months up on the Orkney Islands, and I was there from 9 months out to 15 months out, and came down to Perth. And Anna had started her mission in Dundee, so we were in the same zone.
That's right.
That's as close as we got to serving, around each other at that time.
Yeah.
So you went from
we had one of those really fun zones where we would get together on P Day and do really fun things. We went to Dunnottar Castle. We got permission to go to different places, and Dunnottar was one of them. So that was probably the first time you and I had ever had a conversation, like a real chat.
It's like the very north end of the Dundee zone too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think actually Dunnottar's
it's out of the area.
Aberdeen.
I was going to
It's out
say
of the zone.
Yeah.
almost to Stonehaven by that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to get special permission for our zone to do that. But that was the first time that we had talked, and I was like, okay, all right, Elder Rogers, got you.
I mean,
he had no clue, but
I didn't know she felt that way. She wasn't obvious about it.
And I think I got moved right after that. Like there was no shenanigans.
We spent it was 3 months in Perth. After 2 transfers, after 3 months, I went from Perth to back to Edinburgh zone leader area in Dalkeith as the zone leader, and Anna was moved at that same time. You went to Alloa?
I went to Aberdeen.
So they moved us in opposite directions.
Yeah.
While I was in Aberdeen, he got called into the office. So we were excited because you and Paul Williams were both APs together in the office.
Oh,
and you
nice.
had to do interviews. And you came to our baptisms in Alloa.
Yeah. So there was a few occasions
to see.
after serving the same zone. During the remainder of my mission, there were probably a handful of times we got to meet up for good reasons. It wasn't just I get to see Sister Burton, but that was a plus. So,
But Chris, you went home in March of 2001, right? And Anna, you didn't go home until August. Is that correct?
Yes. Was it 4 months? No, you got home early.
I went actually home closer to the end of April. I had
really?
one extra transfer in the mission.
Our mission president wanted everybody to extend their mission.
Yeah, you were
So
in
it
the
was like-
era of missionaries where the Brits got to stay longer, the Americans had the option, and anybody else, it was based on their visas, where I was 2 years to the day, because if I was any longer, I don't know what would have happened.
You
to
were
me.
illegal.
Oh.
They were gonna.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would have been illegal.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of cool because I was going to extend, but it's this is just a coincidence to our relationship, but he had booked a holiday to the US with your best friend for August.
That same friend whose mission inspired my own had already booked to come out to see a mission companion of his in Arizona. And he said, you should come with me. We'll make a whole 4-week trip of it. We'll go into Arizona. We'll go up to Utah. We'll see friends. And
Yeah.
so I was tagging along, and I wrote to Anna and said, hey, remind me when you're going to be home. I've got this trip planned. And at the time, she thought she was not going to see me.
Because I was going to extend and come home in the September moves.
Yeah.
But my parents had written me and said they were going to be in Moscow, which didn't bother me. But I told the mission president, President Wilkinson at the time, and said, just so you know, my parents won't be home. And he said, then you can't extend your mission. You need to go home in August. And so he happened to be there.
As fate would have
He
it.
came
How
to my
about that?
homecoming. Yeah, it was awesome.
It was meant to be. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
what happened from there? Tell us, because Chris, did you go home at that point? Like,
I remember. Yeah, I went to her homecoming, but 2 days before that, I had called up, the phone number for her in the mission directory, and her dad answered, and her dad said, "Oh, I think she knows you're in town and she's expecting you. I'll tell her that you're coming over."
He just told him.
And then he
come
hung up. That was
he
the
must have been on
shortest
the
phone
other
call.
line or something.
And I'm like, I don't have a vehicle. We're like hitching rides to get around. I got to figure out getting to her house now in the next couple hours.
And I get home and he tells me this Chris Rogers is coming over, and I'm like, I don't look cute right now, and I'm like freaking out. It was funny.
So we had a little kind of meet a couple days before her homecoming. Yeah. And then we went to homecoming and kind of rearranged a little bit of our trip. My friend could see that we were making a connection and didn't want to interrupt that. So he went.
What a good guy. What a good guy.
He was a great friend. Yeah. So
it was like 2 weeks of dating until you left.
And then we went back to Arizona, and I was just telling Anna this just a couple weeks ago. His mission friend that was hosting us in Arizona, it was the last week of our trip. We get there, and he's going on a hunt with his dad and his brother, and he's not going to be there. And we're left with his mom and his sister for like 6 days before our return flight to the UK. And we were like, we should have just stayed in Utah. This is boring. Nothing going on. Now I'm feeling some feelings for Anna, thinking, I gotta somehow get back to Utah. We didn't make that happen.
We should share that when he was on the mission as the AP, I was like, okay, I've got feelings for this guy. I'm probably going to just write him when he gets home, right? Like we're good missionaries, so we're trying to. And
despite my teasing over all these years, nothing happened on the mission. But if anyone asked me,
no, you're not telling that joke.
I would say
you're not telling that joke over the mission.
Okay. All right.
You can tell us later.
Whatever I have said in the past, it wasn't.
It's not
true.
a funny joke because people will believe it.
So,
oh my gosh.
He likes to say we only made out once.
No,
Is that the one you were going to tell? Because
I was going to say
funny.
kiss, but you said kiss.
So I'm in the mission thinking that I've got feelings for this missionary, but he's probably because he was such a good missionary. He really was like an amazing teacher, leader, baptizer.
Oh, stop.
And so I thought, okay, I'm going to write him a note when he gets home, my little plan. And then I got a letter from him first, right when he left.
Wow.
And it was actually something that was floating around the mission.
I found it on the office computer in the mission office that was an application to date an S.E.M. RM.
Yeah, it's funny.
So I printed it and I mailed it to her with a chocolate bar.
So I had to fill out this
Just-
goofy questionnaire, and I was like, okay, he's flirting. He's this.
Oh
this
man.
You
Do you
filled it
still
out.
have a copy of that, Chris? Because that's got to be an
I
S.E.M.
need
like
to find
relic.
Oh,
I think you
I've
have
got it.
Yeah,
I've
she
got
has
it, and
my
I'm like,
gosh.
it's probably somewhere.
Yeah,
Like,
it's We should resurrect that. That's worth having.
That would be very much an interesting thing to float back around to everybody and be like, all right, what did you think if you had this in your hands as a missionary?
Well, what was funny was there were quite a few from around our time. I mean, when I came out in the mission, there were like 170 missionary elders and like 8 sisters. So really, there weren't very many sister missionaries, but there were sisters and elders that were getting married from our mission, like quite a few. And so when Chris was in the office with Elder Williams, who you guys interviewed, they were trying to sink the S.E.M. love boat. They were trying to put this to an end.
I failed. I ended up captaining the ship.
Oh man.
Well, the first time your names came up in our podcast was when Joelle Wallace mentioned all of the people that she had served with that got married to S.E.M. missionaries. So that was pretty fun to hear. And she'll be happy to see that you guys are on the podcast, and hopefully those other couples will get on here in the future for sure.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah, it'd be great.
I'd love that.
It's cool. So tell us about life since you guys decided to get married
since the mission. Yeah.
So when I went back to England, well, this is cool because I served in Dundee at the end of my mission as well. So I was there for 10 months
total
altogether.
Okay.
Long time in Dundee. We met at the Bingham Terrace Chapel. So when I came out to see you in England, we did a road trip with my cousin, and we went up and he proposed on the stairs at Bingham Terrace Chapel.
I had a florist deliver flowers. There were roses waiting by the door. And then when she had picked up the roses, I was, she turned around and I'm on one knee.
Yeah, you guys, bear in mind, like 2 months. 2 months after we were dating, I was like, "What is happening?" She
said yes. That's all I know. Wasn't too.
This is on the staircase coming off the street on Bingham.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was up at the top of the stairs, like right as you're going into the chapel.
What we didn't know at the time, I had asked her cousin to just give us a minute and wait in the car. So she's watching all this happen from the car, freaking out, screaming. I wish she had been video recording it, but
that's epic.
Yeah.
So that's how that happened. And then,
just a few months ago, we went back for our 22nd wedding anniversary, and we went to Bingham Terrace, and cool. It was amazing because it was testimony. It happened to be testimony meeting, and I had mentioned at the pulpit that, that he had proposed there, and that was obviously a very special place because I knew a lot of the members.
There were a few members that remember Anna as a missionary 23 years ago.
It's amazing.
And they were lining up to talk to her after the sacrament meeting. We felt bad. The Sunday school teacher was probably frustrated at the delay, but then the ward historian came up to us and says, "Hey, we got to get a photo. We're going to add you to the ward history books. This is a story we need to remember." So she's a celebrity now.
No, well, I just served there long enough that they didn't forget about me completely.
Yeah.
So.
Over half our mission. That's pretty cool.
I know, right? Yeah, and it was an awesome area. Loved it so much.
So we did the long distance dating thing and engagement.
9 months.
Which it's not great under the best of circumstances, but right when we had started all of that long distance, 9/11 happened, 2001. So travel just was different from that point and a little tricky. So I moved here April 2002. We got married in May. Thankfully I got accepted at BYU and transferred from being in law school in England for 1 semester to undergraduate at BYU. And when I was looking for law as a course of study, they said, "No, that's a graduate school. It's not the same in the UK."
He had to do the long way.
Did it the long way.
Yeah,
but she was worth it.
I wasn't willing to live in England. I've lived in Scotland. I kind of know what it's like.
It's not the same, but she got her fill. She didn't want to move there.
Yeah.
So and I wouldn't change it. We've had a great a great run. We've lived in Oregon. We've lived in Denver, Colorado. We've spent the rest of the time here in Utah.
Our first child came 9 months after we got married. And our
There you go.
honeymoon was in Scotland.
Oh, cool.
And she came out with red hair. And we were
Oh,
like, how
definitely,
happen?
definitely.
She
awesome.
came
The
out
seed of
wearing
the
a
land.
kilt too. I don't know how that happened.
She did. She came out with red hair. We were like, what?
Yeah. And I'm sure our siblings are still doing the math, like, 9 months to the day to your wedding. Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was like May 30th we got married. She was born March 26th. So
Oh my goodness.
it was
That's
it was
amazing.
close. Anyway,
Yeah.
we've got 4 children. She's the oldest of our 4 children. 22 now, 20,
21, 19.
16, and 12. 2 boys, 2 girls.
Yeah.
And our youngest is
We didn't share. His brother served in Scotland, and his wife did as well.
Wait, seriously?
Yes. And there
So
was
I-
actually a big Zoom conference we'd had where we had a sister sleepover. And her and I had admitted to fancying the Rogers brothers.
Oh, boy.
I know I probably should not admit this on a podcast.
That's
But
fantastic.
We ended up with them. So it's really fun because we just have a family full of Scotland, Edinburgh.
So you
missionaries.
should invite them maybe if
Man.
you're going to start a trend of interviewing couples.
Yeah.
Stuart Rogers and Lisa Guy at the time, now Lisa Rogers. But so my brother Stuart came out into the mission one transfer before I went home. So it's my last 6 weeks. President Wilkinson and Elder Williams excluded me from the room while they deliberated who was going to be my brother's trainer. They would not let me participate in that decision. And they
funny.
made the right choice. And
Didn't you get to go on exchanges?
and then we went on exchanges, and it was he served in my first area. It was his first area, so there was a lot of overlap. He served in the Orkney Islands too. It was
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
It was fun to draw some parallels. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Where do your brother and sister-in-law live?
they're now in Ohio.
In Ohio. Cool.
They came out to Utah 2007,
They're both from England.
2008, I think. So they've been in the States for a
But
while.
he came to BYU to do a master's degree. And then he's an engineer in Ohio. So they're on a bunch of acreage and they live the farm life. And so they're really fun, interesting people. A lot more interesting than us.
Well, send them our way.
Yeah, we
I-
love referrals.
Okay.
That's
awesome.
great.
All right.
Um,
Well, that's fantastic.
What questions did we not answer?
I think you covered most of it. I mean, you guys have a great family. You live in Lehigh, and Scotland is still a prevalent part of your life, it sounds like, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, we've been able to go out a few times, huh? Because he has family in England, it's nice to get
There's
to
a
go.
good reason to get over the other
There's
side of the
there's
world
a
once in a
pull to
while.
want to go back, sure. And
Such a cool.
And I'm sure, like everyone, last general conference, hearing the announcement of the temple in Edinburgh, when we were there in June this year, and we stopped by the mission office, and the mission president was not there, but one of the office elders was there, and we were picking their brain where it was going to be, trying to get the scoop.
Yeah.
They don't really know yet; it's not really announced, but they have some. There's plenty of speculation.
Zach
But
did
we-
the same thing a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago. so-
I was there the first 2 weeks of August and did the same thing. So
Yeah,
asked
yeah.
all the members and everybody who is in the know, and nobody has a clue at this point in time, but
Yeah.
we know it'll
Yeah.
be in the right place. That's all I know.
That's right.
We just have to trust that, don't we?
Yeah.
But
When
yeah.
when they announced the Scotland Edinburgh Temple, which obviously we've all been waiting for forever, they announced the Lehigh Temple as well. And that was like, oh, cool. And then when they said the Scotland,
just up the road, but we're more excited about the Edinburgh
but I just
Scotland.
burst into tears when we
Oh, yeah.
heard that it was Scotland. And I'm not even an emotional person, but I was like, oh my goodness, like
She's pretty emotional.
I agree, Anna, though. I heard Scotland and I heard nothing else on the list that President Nelson read. I was just like, I was overjoyed with that announcement, because I mean, for all of us, we've been waiting 20 to 30 years to hear that and to see it happen. Like some of us, I have an aunt that served in Scotland in the 80s, and I have another distant cousin who served in the late 70s. They've been waiting a much longer time than we have, and they were overjoyed as well. So just amazing to see the faithfulness of the saints continue to push and push and push. And I was amazed because I went to one of my wards that I served in Montrose, and they had just talked about returning from the temple, and they said that several stakes from Scotland were all there at once. And one of the people in the Preston temple said, "What are we going to do when you guys have your own temple and you guys don't come anymore? Like, it's going to be kind of a ghost town down in Preston." And I don't disagree. I'm sure it'll be such a joy for them to be able to travel a shorter distance to get to a temple.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of flights booked of missionaries going to Scotland, because we're already like, hey, we're going to go. And what is it going to take 2-3 years?
The moment they announced Delta flights are going to double in price with all of us trying to go.
But there's going to be a big reunion of all the Scotland missionaries. And
do you both live close to the Littleton? Well, it's the Denver, Colorado temple, but it's in Littleton.
I live closer to there. So I live in Highlands Ranch, and if I hop out the door and I'm on University, I'm maybe 5 minutes from the Denver temple.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. We just spoiled here in Utah. Sorry, Jack, you were going to.
Well, carry on.
We have 5 temples within 20 minutes, and we're getting another one in Lehigh that's going to be a 5-6 minutes. So we're really condemned at that point if we're not going weekly. We don't have very much justification for not being temple attendees regularly, and it's such an example that I remember observing there on my mission, that people were saving for a whole year to then take 3 weeks and make sure the trip was going to be worth the sacrifice to be in Preston, and before that, they would go all the way down to the London temple, and it was
pretty amazing.
Yeah, so I mean that's just one of the things that I took away from my mission, being among the Scots, is sacrifice, their willingness to do what it took.
Yeah.
Can you guys put a Scottish accent on?
No. I tried in front of a bunch of people, and they told me it was rubbish. So I'm not even going to try it again.
We do it all the time. We did it the entire time we were in Scotland. We had to just,
Well, because we were tour guides to her brother and sister-in-law who'd never been.
So we just talked in accents the whole time.
And they weren't a great judge, so we got away with any accent.
There you go. See, that's the key.
That's the Scottish accent.
That's the key right there, is to have someone who doesn't speak it.
Yeah.
The audience of this podcast will be on to you, though.
Yes. No, we're not going to try right now.
I'll try.
Fire
I'll
away.
do it. What do you want me to say? I'll tell you anything you want to know. I'm not too bad at it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, she's pretty good. She's pretty good. It's a very posh version, though. You're definitely Edinburgh in that
it's
one.
No Glaswegian. It's more Dundonian.
You're not afraid someone's getting stabbed when you hear that one.
No, you know.
That's exactly.
No,
what
you're not afraid of it. The more you practice, the better you get. It starts to go a little bit deeper in the back of the throat. Not too bad, eh?
You've been reading the Orwell, haven't you?
See, he wants to do it. He wants to.
We're tempting him.
I'm not going to do it. Because someone will come on this podcast and call me out again and say it was rubbish.
You should make all the missionaries give their Scottish accent.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine that compilation? It would be absolutely terrible. We'd get absolutely hammered by people in Scotland listening to it. They'd be like, these guys are just...
I used to listen to Zach and Jack, but
they're not going to listen to Zach and Jack anymore.
Exactly. I don't tune in anymore. Yeah.
Oh man, that's so funny.
Well, let's go back to the mission.
You mean to the point to this whole thing?
To the real purpose of it. Yeah.
And Chris, start us off with we'll go to Scotland because you talked about the MTC, but tell us areas, companions, memories. We'll just
Yeah.
go the whole way through, and then
You
we'll go
can.
back and catch
Isn't
it.
it 20 minutes?
I'll fast forward. Yeah.
But
I was the-
we've got time.
I was the only missionary from the MTC going to Scotland, and I thought that was strange. But what I didn't know was Provo MTC had sent a group that hadn't gone to the Preston MTC, so they were already in Scotland. And when I came up, I was the only one coming from Preston on a plane that was delayed. So by the time I got to the mission home, I'd missed all of the training, and just in time to have like closing prayer for the meeting and have a little dinner, lunch before we were all sent to our first areas. So I barely got to meet my trainer before we were leaving, and he was saying, "Yeah, follow me. We're getting trained."
Who's that?
And that was Simon Kia. He was my trainer. He was my first companion, and we went worked in Irvine, and that was about as close to Glasgow as I got. And I had 2 transfers with him, and then I had Elder Lamb for 1 transfer, and then I was moved to Greenock. I had Bob Everett. I was his last companion, and then I had Kenneth Ernstrom. Then I left Greenock and I went to the Edinburgh zone leader area. I was the companion to Jason Stubbs, was the zone leader. I had just 1 transfer with him, and that's when they called me and said, "Hey, you need to drive a new car up to the Orkneys." So I went up there, and I had Justin Pratt was my companion.
Didn't someone say on your way back that you wouldn't baptize?
Oh, well, that same missionary who'd crashed the vehicle, he's like, "Enjoy your time on the Orkneys. Don't expect to baptize anyone." And I think maybe that
So-
was the fire that
So
I
fine.
needed.
How do you do?
So then
Well, and how many people were in that branch?
I mean, it was a branch of 5 active members meeting in a little women's institute, 1 room on Sunday mornings in the town center. And so we were determined, and we had 3 baptisms in the North Sea.
They doubled their branch.
Wow.
That's amazing.
I trained in Orkney, so Nathan Jenkins I trained,
That's right.
and that's when I came down to Perth and had Corey Stoffer as my companion, and then Taylor Wells, and then I was back in the Edinburgh zone leader area with Elder Harwood. What's his first name?
Let me find it.
You got Stephen Harwood.
Steven, that's right.
And then I was in the mission office with Rhett Udy and then Paul Williams.
Didn't you go to Stephen Harwood's wedding?
Yeah.
And his sealer sealed us.
Yeah, he had the same
Ned Winder.
Ned Winder was a temple sealer in the Salt Lake Temple.
It's cool.
He was like a 1-man comedy show. I don't know how a temple sealer brought the spirit so strongly, but had everyone rolling with
Oh,
laughter
so
at the
good.
same time. Yeah.
I love it.
I just have to say I loved all of my mission companions. I think I had the best track for mission companions my whole 2 years, and
You had good ones. Huh?
yeah, and everyone that knows those that I served will agree, I'm sure.
So you see, you
Who did-
trained Nathan Jenkins, and who was your other companion in Orkney?
When I got there, it was
Steve
Justin Pratt.
Okay, thank you. I was
Yeah.
trying to keep up.
Who did you baptize in Orkney? Zach served there a few years later.
So we had I
For
was
4
trying-
weeks, so if I didn't meet them, sorry.
there was a guy. Our first baptism was a guy who we had seen around town, and he was on the ferry coming back onto the islands after we were traveling back from a zone conference, and he was the scariest looking man on the island. I mean, he was 6'5". He looked like a fisherman. He wore this long leather coat with a big turtleneck sweater and an earring in one ear and just a mean glare. And we got talking with him somehow and found out where he lived and went to visit. And he was our first convert. I was probably there 2.5 months when that happened. And and then there were two sisters on the Orkneys living together, and we were teaching them, and they joined the church. Jean Whitfield was the Relief Society president.
The name sounds familiar.
The name of the guy, I'm pretty sure, was Bob. I've got to look in my mission journals to remind.
I was trying to find his mission journals before this.
They're in the storage room,
buried away somewhere.
In a box that's not clearly labeled. Sorry.
All good.
But Tara was one of the two sisters, and Avril, I think, was the name of the other person.
Okay.
Her sister. Yeah. So, but we'll have to get Justin Pratt or Nathan to correct me. They might have the names right.
No, that's good. We didn't have a whole lot of people that went to church when I was there as well.
Yeah.
So was Stephen Scully there at the time you were there?
He was the branch president when I was there.
Apparently he was the branch president for somewhere close to 30 years is what I understood before he was released. Absolute legend in Scotland and in the Orkney Isles. So one of my, so this is kind of a crazy full circle story, but a young man who was preparing for his mission in the Hamilton ward when I was a missionary there is now in the stake presidency in Aberdeen. And he said, the next time I go up to Orkney, I'll make sure that, I let him know that you're asking for him. Yeah. And ultimately, like, I was there for a blip on the radar of missionaries that were in Orkney, but whether he remembers me or not, I just wanted him to know that he's just an absolute legend. Like, I don't know how he did what he did for as long as he did, but he's got mansions upon mansions upon mansions in heaven for what he has done in Orkney. It's unbelievable.
I think when I was there, so Arnie Flett was the branch president before him.
Yeah.
And bless him, Steve was a recent convert and was within the first year of membership in the church when the branch president, Arnie Flett, stopped coming to church, and they called President Scully as his replacement. And he was just learning the gospel and trying to figure out what church should be for a group of 5 people meeting weekly, trying to make and keep covenants, right? Like, I mean, their circumstances were just challenging, to say the least, without the context of all of the experience of a functioning ward and attendance in a big congregation like we may all be used to. And
we used to joke that the church was only 60% true in Scotland.
We don't say that. She says that.
Only because
oh my gosh.
And you'd be like, oh wait, what are we doing?
You're pulling me under the bus.
What is this false doctrine?
I disavow that statement.
I'm sorry, you guys. I should not have come on here.
This is fantastic. I'm loving every second of this.
So humor is what draws us together.
Yeah, it is actually.
It's what keeps us.
It's what keeps the marriage alive.
I can tell you as well, Chris, that Arnie and his wife Mina came back to church when I was there.
That's so good. We would visit them, and they were so receptive to our visits.
They fed us, and my companion took advantage of me and being a newer missionary by making me eat all the leftovers and roll me out of their house. But they were so good to us. I asked about him recently. Apparently, Arnie has passed away. But Mina is still around. Not sure in what capacity she's still kicking about, but she's still alive, according to the stake presidency's records in the Aberdeen Aberdeen steak. So
She was
pretty amazing.
great at baking all kinds of baked goods. I mean, that's why you would
Yes.
roll out of their house after a visit. She's like, "Oh, you got to try this. I just baked it just this morning."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They fed us well in the time I was there, and they made an impression on my heart for sure.
But Zach, you'll appreciate the Flats are original to the Orkneys, so their accent is not a Scottish dialect that anyone who hasn't
no.
served there would understand. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just so fast and thick that even having grown up in the UK, my first visit to them, I was like, I maybe got one every 3 words. I knew what they were saying.
Yeah, I appreciated, for the most part, you walk around Kirkwall and you talk to people, and there was quite a Scandinavian influence in the community, and so it wasn't as hectic of the way that people speak, which was refreshing for a short period of time. But I got sent straight into the heart of Glasgow right after that, and I was like, man, I miss the Orkneys now because I can't understand the words that are coming out of these kids' mouths.
They had a tradition in Kirkwall that they called the bar.
Yeah, I missed that. I missed that by 2 weeks.
New Year's Day,
Yes.
the whole town was divided into 2 teams. And I think it was self-selected, right? It's like long living rivalries die hard, and they just, it was like 2 teams, and it was like a rugby scrum, but it wasn't a rugby ball. It was the bar, right? Like an abbreviated word. Instead of calling it the ball, it was the bar.
Was it a ball?
And it was a ball. It was a round shaped object, but it was like a leather, like an original soccer ball made of an intestine or something. I don't know. But anyway, they had to get it to the water. If they were the team going downhill, they had to get it up to the church if they were the team going uphill. And it would go all day because there was a crowd stopping any movement of this item. Somehow there was a winner every year. Yeah, that's crazy.
Did you participate then?
Yeah, did you jump in there?
I watched, but we were very clearly instructed not to participate.
We've had missionaries come on that have said they did participate.
Yeah.
Not sure how they got permission or even asked for permission.
They probably didn't ask.
They just jumped in and
They
participated.
knew the answer was going to be no, so
Yeah.
they just did not. Yeah.
A nice cultural experience that you can't. I mean, it only comes once a year. You know, it's like
Yeah.
you might as well.
Do you know
So-
if they send sisters to the Orkneys now? Like, is that an area that they would?
We have
Because the
had-
sisters.
We've had sisters come on who served there. So Sister Samus, I know, served there. If you want,
They didn't let
on
us
our podcast.
when I was there, but I wondered if they had, because we couldn't go to Glasgow either. Sisters couldn't serve in Glasgow.
We've heard
Yeah.
they've changed that a little bit too.
Okay,
So,
good to hear.
Because there's less missionaries in Scotland, they cover bigger areas.
Yeah.
So you can go to Glasgow and not be isolated to the rougher parts of it, I suppose.
Got you.
Yeah, from the time that we were there, we had Jack's era had sisters in the Orkney Isles before I got there, and then while I was a zone leader, we had sister missionaries in the Shetland Islands for a period of time as well. So they did let the sisters up on the islands for a period of time, which they all loved it. I'm sure that it was nice to get away from us ruckus elders for a minute in time, but yeah, it's very cool that they, at one point, probably like your era, Anna, you're saying the sisters didn't get up there, and
Yeah.
but they did change their tune on that, at least in our era. So it's pretty cool.
Zach, when you were there, did you have any shortage of groceries in the stores?
Yes, we did go through a weekend of gale force winds where the ferries didn't bring over the groceries, and I will never forget. Like, I can close my eyes and picture myself in that bread aisle in the grocery store, and it was like Armageddon was coming because there was hardly anything on the shelves, and I had looked at my companion and said, they do understand this is a storm that's just going to blow by and it'll be normal here in a day or two. But they were packing like they were going to be in their house for the next 4 weeks. I mean, it was pretty intense.
We had a couple of occasions during the 6 months where the ferry didn't come, and it wasn't that people were, stonewalling groceries in their in their pantries, but they'd done their regular shop not knowing that the ferry was going to be delayed, and then there was just nothing for a few days. It left me feeling like I was in a very precarious situation.
Yeah.
And just had to trust there's going to be food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, and my companion and I didn't care that it was 150 miles an hour winds outside. We went, to some of the points on the island, and laid
Crossing
on
those very thin
laid
roads
on the
between,
wind, and just did the dumbest things that us teenage boys do. So, but it was an awesome experience. Did you guys do service on the pig farm at that point in time?
No, we would go to an elderly care center residential home and call out the numbers for their bingo and
Nice.
feed them dinner and do some other things. Yeah, there was a facility for physically disabled youth. I don't know if you did that, but we would go play games of pool or darts and then help serve the lunch, and
Okay.
that was kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. We had a brother of a less active member who ran a pig farm by himself. He's an old elderly man, and we'd go out once a week. And I remember being in a grain silo moving grain, and then we cleaned out pig pens and helped shuffle the pigs from pen to pen or into the truck. And for that, we got like fresh bacon and eggs every week, which was the best thing that we could have ever asked for. But it was an experience, again, similar to those where you're in the middle of Glasgow and seeing things you'd never see in your life. I'd never thought in my life that I would be in a grain silo on an island in Scotland, shoveling grain or any of those random experiences. But it's definitely part of my heart now that when I think about Orkney, it brings back good memories.
Yeah, it's a fantastic place. And when we talk about history, I mean, here in the US, it's a different term of art to say history. In Orkney, they had excavated a village, and this building was dated at 2000 BC. I mean, they had real relics.
Yeah.
And it was kind of fun to visit.
I'm still mad at my companion because we turned at that road to go north, and like Scarborough was right there, and he never took me because he had been on the island for like 4.5 months, and so I missed it all because he had already seen it.
Why were you there only for 4 weeks?
I got called there.
You didn't crash a car through a brick wall?
Did you get moved or something?
No. So missionaries had been on the island for quite a long time when I got there, because I got there the end of my first year. So were there elders on the Orkneys when you started, Jack?
Yeah.
So they'd been there for a couple of years, and they kind of had done as much as they could. So they elected to close the area for a period of time, like right after I got there. So my companion at the time was on his way home. It was his last 6 weeks, and he spent his last 2 weeks in his Greenie area in Elgin. And I went down to Glasgow City Centre and replaced the incoming assistant. So I was the zone leader companion for 2 weeks. So I only got Orkney for 4 weeks, and it was mid-November to mid-December. So I had it like the darkest time of the year, which was pretty fascinating as well.
Yeah. I will say about that area as well, it's where I learned to polish my public speaking abilities, because when you go to church on a Sunday and there's only 5 members, if one person asked to give a talk, they're just rotating through 5 of them, and then the missionaries take up the rest of the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So my morning study became really important. My ability to, make something interesting.
Talks? Is that what we call them? Spot talks?
Yeah. I mean, we all had to have a 5-minute ready to go whenever, right? And I used up that 5-minute talk my first week. So I had to come up with a new one every week. And it wasn't a 5-minute. It was like, you're taking 20 minutes of an hour meeting, and then your companion's going to take up the other 20. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure my companion arranged that I did everything the first week of church there because I blessed, passed the sacrament, said the closing prayer, gave a talk, and taught Sunday school
Yeah.
on that particular Sunday. And I still don't understand how he did nothing. He just I'm sure he still chuckles to this day.
He was supervising. Yeah.
Sure. I like that. That's pretty
Yeah,
funny.
if you compare my my outgoing mission talk in my home ward in England, where I had it written down and I barely looked up from the paper, to my homecoming talk, the majority of that difference was because of my service in Orkney.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Anna, walk us through your service areas, companions.
So I mentioned the MTC. I was with Sister Wallace, Joelle Wallace, and she was like amazing. She was a grinder. We would run every morning at 6 a.m.
Amazing.
And it was awesome. And then so my first area was Dundee, and I had Sister Bruce, Alison Bruce. And she was a Spitfire. She was British, and we had a lot of fun, but I think we had a little too much fun because she got emergency moved from me.
No. What'd you do?
I was being trained, so I just did what I was told. But
Sure.
there may have been a couple of, double dates, I think we used to call them, when you were hanging out with elders. And I was just kind of going along for the ride, like, oh, okay, this is really fun. I mean, she was actually an amazing teacher, and
They didn't mention this in the MTC, but this is great.
this is a blast.
You get the pick of the litter.
We had a good time, but she did get emergency moved for me 2 months in.
Interesting.
And then Amber Red came in, Sister Red, and she was a well-known missionary, very popular, so much fun, really great missionary.
That is a unique name, Amber Red.
Yeah, right? Yellow Red.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So she married someone that we brought back to church, actually. He was less active.
Oh, wow.
And yeah.
Not while she was there the first time. Not on the mission.
Good
Just
clarification.
clarifying.
So
Thank you, Chris.
she ended up dating him.
If you come back to church,
You
What's
could have
cool
my
is-
phone number.
she was from Delta, Utah, and we went to their sealing in St. George, Utah. And it was President Wilkinson, our mission president, who married
Oh,
them.
wow.
That's amazing.
That's
I
cool.
think they were his first marriage sealing
I don't know about that.
as a sealer, because I remember when we were staying with the Wilkinsons
Oh,
that weekend, attending the wedding, and
he had just been called.
he was kind of he'd been recently called and was practicing memorizing that part because it was still new.
Yeah. So then I moved Dundee. That was like 6 months there. I went to Aberdeen and served with Sister Whitaker. What's her Whitaker's first name? Esther Whitaker. And Megan Edmonds
in Aberdeen.
in Aberdeen. I was there for 3 months. I had a cool experience with Sister Whitaker because I remember we kept knocking doors in the rain. It was a very dreary part of the year. It was winter and it was miserable. And I said to her, I really feel like we should find someone through the members. I feel like we're being told that that's effective because I was being tortured with this chapping in the rain. And so we went and visited a new member. And I can't actually remember her name, but she introduced us to her very best friend, Catherine Crombie. And she started taking the lessons, and her mom was interested, Marjorie, and they both got baptized. And Marjorie ended up being cousins with the stake patriarch in Aberdeen. And it just felt like this amazing experience where I had felt the Spirit prompting us to really work on the new members. And then we find these awesome investigators, and they ended up, we had automatic fellowshipping because her brother was the patriarch. So
Yeah,
It
that's
was
awesome.
neat.
Very cool.
Still in touch with them, and
Were you
then
in the Aberdeen ward?
yeah.
Okay. Because I was
I
a zone
think.
leader there for 6 months.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love that ward. So
What
good.
was the other ward? Maybe it wasn't. Oh my goodness, my
Bridge of
memory.
Dawn.
That's what it was. It was Bridget
Okay.
on. Yeah.
All
Yep,
right.
I
I'll
don't have
forgive
that
you.
right. Okay, sorry. You would have still been my zone leader though, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So Elder Paul Williams was my zone leader there
Oh, nice. That's
in that
awesome.
area. So then I was moved to Alloa, to the branch there, and served with Sister Jensen, Melissa Jensen, and then I trained Katie Grant, who actually lives here in Lehigh.
Okay.
So I get to run into her every now and again and chat. And then they moved me back to Dundee, where I served with Sister Eduardes, Jessica Eduardes, and Leah Adams, who's now Leah Prinz. I would love to hear that any of them be interviewed, but Leah Prinz lives in the Netherlands now. But
Yeah,
she was
her
from
husband's
England.
Dutch, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was just a beloved, sister missionary. So I was actually really close with all of my companions as well. I know that missionaries nowadays, you'll ask what was the hardest part, and often they'll say it was companions that were the hardest part of their mission.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed all of them a lot. So I think that was one way we were really lucky or blessed, whatever you'd want to say.
Both.
And my
Both
companion
fun.
after the mission has been not too bad either.
Your best one yet.
It's good.
Yeah.
Love to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that you guys can definitely help us with is you're a little bit earlier era-wise than we were in the mission. Did you guys have the Clydes for a period of time before the Wilkinsons came in?
Yes.
Yeah. So President Sister Wilkinson came in July of 2000, and so I had President Clyde for about 16, 17 months, and then the last 8 or 9 months was with the Wilkinsons. And I had, like I said at the beginning, 2 friends from my stake in England had served in Scotland earlier than I did, and both under the Clydes. And so when I've talked to them, they've mentioned missionary names that I didn't serve with, but I've heard more than once.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a little bit of overlap with an earlier generation. We're good friends with another couple here in Utah who have a very similar story.
Our very best friends.
He grew up in the north of England, so his accent's a little different than mine, and he hasn't let it be corrupted like I have. So he's still very English. And she's American. I think she grew up in Florida, but they live in Provo, and we get together with them all the time.
We met them through another S.E.M. It was like it was a party that he had, and so then we started hanging out with them. So they have the same story, but they weren't serving the same time.
Different mission presidents.
They had the Clydes.
Barry Fell, Brittany Wild.
Okay.
The mutual friend is Nathan Stevens, and
but Barry and Brittany's story would be really fun to hear too.
Yeah.
Send them our way too.
Yeah.
And they've got a daughter on a mission right now, so we like go on vacation with them and have pretty parallel lives.
Same stage in life.
Yeah.
Kids the same ages.
So it's fun to have kids be on missions now and just see that full circle, it's neat to get to witness them going through some of the same things that we did, and it's just surreal.
We can only imagine at this point in time. Maybe someday. My daughter turns 10 on Wednesday, so.
Oh, it will come faster than you think right now.
Oh, I'm sure. My wife and I talk about it all the time. It's like in a blink of an eye, she'll be a teenager, and then she'll be driving, and then she won't want anything to do with us. So
I do
we
think
talk
though,
about it a lot.
as you share your experiences, like it really was my dad, hearing my dad's stories of his mission that made me really want to do that. And I think when you create that culture in your family, we talk a lot about our missions. And
The danger for our children, though, is they go on their own mission thinking they're going to meet a spouse while they're there. and our daughter actually did say that in her homecoming talk, that she's happy to report that didn't happen for her, but she did go out with that expectation.
no, she didn't. No, she said when she was like 5 years old, she thought that that's what you did. You went on your mission and you found your spouse.
Yeah, you start dating as a missionary.
Oh man.
Man,
So-
that would have been a whole nother bag of drama for the mission president. My God.
Yeah.
I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. My younger brother served in Scotland and met his wife there. My youngest brother served in Greece and met his wife on his mission in Greece. And my sister is the youngest of the 4 of us. She got called to Temple Square, Salt Lake City, where it's all sisters. So we thought the trend has been broken, but she stopped her husband and asked him for a referral. And he was from England on vacation. And fast forward, they were both coordinators for
Yeah, EFY or
EFY or
something. So,
something. And then
it's just a family thing, apparently.
yeah.
Oh man. That's great.
I have to
Very
say
good.
though, Chris, and this is something that I've learned both from the podcast and just being connected to the UK. In your experience growing up, there weren't a lot of options of people that were good, faithful members of the church, right?
You had a lot smaller dating pool for sure.
Right,
In
right.
Jerusalem.
And we would have Reading dances, young single adult dances hosted in Reading, and people would
Right.
come from all over the UK to go to those dances every 2 months or however frequent.
Yeah.
And you just have a mindset that you were going to have to meet someone a lot further abroad or a lot further afield from your just hometown or home stake,
Yeah.
to meet the right one. So, yeah, it's very
And
true.
I
I didn't think I was going out of the country, I will say, but
But I think that's why the church has this big thing just down the road from you guys called BYU, where all the members of the church come together in that stage of life and people get to meet each other and mingle and all that stuff. I did not go to BYU. I went to the University of Utah because I grew up in Utah and that was just life. So
Yeah.
it was a very different situation altogether, but I can see why the experience that your family, your siblings and yourself had was like, you know what, if I find someone that's awesome where I am doing good things in the name of the Lord, by all means, I think I'll shoot my shots at those opportunities and see what happens. And
Well,
obviously
now
it
he's
worked out.
gotten his parents a green card, so they live here too. Like everybody's coming over here, and I'm like, some of you need to stay
The
there
funny-
so that we can go have somewhere to visit
The
when
f-
we come.
the funniest part of the story is when I got home and I was writing Anna, and I would get letters back from her. My dad was convinced that a Sister Burton writing from the mission office must have been the senior sister sitting as the receptionist for the mission president, still tying up mission business that I needed to answer questions about. And he's like, this is going on a while. Has he really missed, that many assignments that he didn't finish? Or I don't know what his thinking was, but he was pretty shocked when I introduced him to Sister Burton, and it was
That's
Not what he
hilarious.
pictured.
that's right.
Not what he
Yeah.
pictured at all.
Yeah.
Oh my
We had a
goodness.
Scottish wedding too. We had a bagpiper, and my dad and my brothers wore kilts, but he refused to wear a kilt. True Englishman here.
I offered to put on the trews, but I couldn't do the
You couldn't
kilt.
even get a pair of tartan trousers. Come on, Chris.
I,
That's
know,
I
terrible.
offered, but
I know.
no one had a pair.
Oh, I'm sure
That's
you
great.
could have gotten some from somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, if we weren't on a shoestring budget getting married,
Yeah.
I just Would have done it differently.
That's fair. Get a pair of slacks you can wear more than once, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So something we always ask back to the mission presidents, we always ask if there's particular memories that you have of either the Clydes or the Wilkinsons from the mission that you'd like to share.
I have a fond memory of the Clydes coming and visiting while I was in Orkney, and I think it was one of the few times that a mission president came all the way up there, and they taught us how to reupholster the seats on our dining chairs because they were in such bad condition. And Sister Clyde was just upset that we were living in the squalor that we were becoming accustomed to. So we went and got, the little carpet tacks and fabric, and it was like a little project in our apartment, 4 of us standing in this little study area, reupholstering these 2 chairs, folding chairs. That mattered to them, and I still have it as a memory.
Sister Clyde would talk about, was it credibility? She'd always mention that word, credibility. And as you can tell, I'm not very, articulate. And I just remember thinking, okay, I need her in my life. She will help me be, a good reflection of what a missionary should be. The Wilkinsons were who I had most of my time. So, and they just seemed like perfection to me. Like we visited them a year ago, actually, with his brother and his brother's wife. We took our families to go visit our mission president in St. George. And it was the cutest thing. They pulled out this book. They had our wedding invitations, and they had collected all of these things from their missionaries. And
Wow.
And President Wilkinson had a beautiful speech prepared
He
for our
shared
children.
a spiritual thought, and it took me back to the mission. It was perfect. It was like he was teaching the missionaries again, a reminder of God's plan for us.
He just had a commanding way about him where you just yes, everything he said was so profound. And
having served in the mission home and seeing them in their daily routine and be able to observe some things about their service as mission president that not everyone got to observe. It stood out to me when we had a senior sister missionary pass away while she was on the mission.
Yeah.
And the early morning phone calls at 2 and 3 a.m. to her family in the U.S. and repeating the same series of events for each of her children as they needed to hear it to understand what really happened, and a tragedy all the way around, and he was so loving and patient and responsive to their needs that his own really took a back seat for a few days, and I just didn't see him sleep much. And I thought, this is really where we get to observe the example of Christ-like charity. When we call senior couples to try to corral 220-year-olds into trying to be the Savior's ambassadors, they give it their all, and I just took a lot from their example.
Oh man, that was wonderful.
Yeah, that's why we ask that question too, is because there's just so many lives are touched by those couples.
Yeah,
through the years, and such an impact is felt. We want their posterity to have that recorded as well. These experiences that people have had.
Absolutely,
so we appreciate that.
Well said, Jack.
Well, what else do you want to tell us?
I'm just realizing there are people who are going to actually listen to this, huh?
A few will.
I just thought we were hanging out, you guys.
They'll just fast.
You're going to need to edit a few things.
No, this has been awesome.
It's really fun.
Any final thoughts?
I don't know. I did have
while you chew on that, the thought that I have is, and a way that you can continue to help us as we're expanding our reach. You know, my random instant messages on Facebook may hit somebody that they'll say, hey, yeah, maybe I will talk to this random Zach Hewlett guy who's talking about Scotland. Like, some people don't respond to those as well as you did, Anna, and I appreciate that. Do you happen to have still in your possession a copy of your mission roster that they gave you when you went home? And if you do, would you be willing to share it with us?
I think I do, and I'd be happy to share.
I just need to go looking, and
yeah, I mean, I don't need it. I don't need it this
it.
second, but if you can track it down and share it with us, that will help us, because I'm looking through Chris's companion list, and probably the last 3 or 4, apart from Elder Jenkins and maybe Elder Pratt, are not on my current list, because I think Chris Martin is the oldest missionary that we have of his list from 2001. And so I have like the back half of your mission experience in the list of missionaries, but I continue to find more names and more people that I want to reach out to and invite and include them in this amazing work that we've been in the midst of now for over 2 years. And it's just fun for us, because you don't know us from Adam, but because there's that connection to that land and the people that we love so much, it's so easy to have these conversations, and it fills you with that same love and that zeal that you had when you were in Scotland and enjoying crazy times, fun times, terrible times, chapping in the rain and freezing your fingers off. And, but it is made all the more meaningful because we did it, and we've all been there and done that. You know what I mean? So we want to continue to share this with more and more people. And if it bleeds into other mission presidents and their wives, we want these experiences to be recorded in some capacity, so that, like Jack said, the posterity of those that see these videos at some point on YouTube or hear it will understand why we love that land so much. So if you can help us in that endeavor, wonderful. We would love that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and thanks to the both of you. I was saying this to Jack before Zach joined, that we really appreciate the opportunity and have loved listening to those that we've already heard before now, and we will help however we can. This is a worthy cause for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate that.
It's been a delight.
Well, any other questions for us?
Well, we just want to make sure we express our love to you, as our brothers and sisters in Scotland. Like Zach said, it's a unique experience that not really many people get to have, but we share. And so there's a bond there, and we really appreciate it. The podcast is not possible without guests like you coming on. So thank you.
Yeah.
Well, if you come to Lehigh, you ever come to Utah, come to Lehigh and come have dinner over here, and we do a British roast dinner a lot.
We've got the bisto gravy, and we've got
haggis, neeps, and tatties.
Well, yes, without
come on, Chris, let's see it.
Without the haggis.
Come on. There's got to be a sheep somewhere wandering around in Lehigh you could go make into haggis dinner for us.
If I found anything that was lamb, it would not be the intestine that I'm eating.
Yeah.
I don't blame you for that.
But we make the roast dinner. We get the bisto gravy and the roast potatoes, the roast tatties.
Yeah.
So we'll make it, and the Yorkshire puddings and.
You got me there.
Yeah,
Sounds great.
Definitely.
Come on over for a British roast.
Yeah,
that sounds amazing. Yeah, my dad still lives in Sandy, so when I get down there, I'll look you guys up and come down.
Oh yeah, we're just 10 minutes south.
Yeah, I have one of my best friends from growing up that lives in Lehigh, so I'm down there quite a bit to catch up with him too. So that'd be awesome. I'd love to.
Hey, we're holding you to it then.
Yeah,
sounds good.
Cool. Well, thanks again. We wish you the best, and we'll
Thank
be
Yeah,
you,
thank you
guys.
both.
Yeah,
Appreciate ya.
we'll be in touch more, but in the meantime, we'll give you a cheerio and we'll talk more soon.
Okay, cheerio.
All right,
Okay.
cheerio the new.
Take care.
All right, bye.
See you.